A strange encounter on a lonely road. A few years ago, I had a strange, unsettling experience that still I can't fully explain. It was late at night, and I was driving home from a friend's house in a rural area. The road was completely deserted, with no other cars or houses in sight. The only light came from the headlights cutting through the darkness. As I was rounding a bend, I saw a figure stand on the side of the road. It was a young girl, maybe around 10 years old, wearing a white dress that looked strangely out of place. She had long, dark hair that covered most of her face. I slowed down, concerned that she might be lost or in trouble. I rolled down my window and called out to her, asking if she needed help. She didn't respond, but slowly lifted her head, revealing a pair of pitch-black eyes that seemed to absorb the light around them. A chill ran down my spine, and every instinct told me to get away from there as quickly as possible. I sped off, heart pounding, and didn't look back. When I reached home, I told my family about the encounter, but they dismissed it as a trick of the light or my imagination running wild. However, a few weeks later, I heard similar stories from other locals about seeing a girl with black eyes on that same stretch of road. To this day, I avoid that road at night, and I can't shake that feeling that whatever I saw wasn't just a figment of my imagination. Has anyone else experienced something like this? The memory, it still haunts me, and I can't help but wonder who or what that girl was. A kind and helpful ghost. I saw a post on here about angels, and it reminded me of this incident from my past. I was in college and had been tasked with writing a very extensive essay on Barabbas. For those who are unfamiliar, Barabbas was the criminal who was released instead of Jesus, facilitating the death of Christ. I was a lazy college student and had procrastinated and squandered my time until my paper was due the next day. I went to the college library to find anything I could in order to complete my essay. I made my way into the basement of the library, where a lot of the religious encyclopedias were kept, and after a few hours of research I found myself studying alone, quiet and peaceful. Just the sound of my pencil on paper. Eventually, I heard the door open from upstairs, and one of the Jitsu priests came down to check on me. This was not a strange occurrence, since there were dozens of Jitsus living on campus, and most of them were teachers or retired. This was clearly one of the retired priests. "What are you studying?" he asked. "I am wrong about the life of Barabbas," I responded. "Ah, the zealot," he mustered. "You want this one?" He pulled a large book from a shelf. "Barabbas was just like Christ. His name meant Son of God, but his life took a different turn." He helped me finish my essay and gave me lots of tips and pointers and taught me more than anyone ever had. We sat there and talked for hours. His name was Father Joshua, and he told me I could use him as a reference for any of the facts in my essay that the teacher may ask about. I bade him a thankful farewell and left to finalize my essay. The next day I turned in my paper and admitted to my teacher, another Jitsu, that Father Joshua helped me out. He smiled and told me that Father Joshua had been helping students for a long time. He told me how Father Joshua had helped him in his own studies to become a priest, when Father Joshua was still alive, that is. After he battled cancer, Father Joshua seemed to have made it his mission in the afterlife to help wherever he could. When looking for Father Joshua a few times after, I never found him. I tried, but I never saw him again. I hope he is helping someone else now, and I hope he knows he changed my life. I know there's an afterlife because of this, and I know that there is goodness and light there. Palmdale, California. If you've never been to California's Antelope Valley, you might not understand the eerie setting that engulfs Palmdale. Nestled in the Mojave Desert, a rain-shadowed desert meaning it receives very little rainfall, Palmdale feels isolated and surrounded by endless desert. Even within the city limits, pockets of desert interrupt the suburban sprawl and shopping areas. The journey to and from Palmdale is particularly unsettling. The desolate path lacks streetlights, leaving you with miles of darkness and only a single road for company. At night, the vast desert surrounding the city disappears entirely from view. Palmdale itself is a sizable city, neither small nor sprawling. During the day, the harsh desert environment exposes the wear and tear on abandoned buildings and infrastructure, with exposed wood a common sight. An unsettling feeling of abandonment and loneliness permeates the city, especially along Palmdale Boulevard. This area has a higher homeless population and less attractive housing compared to other parts of the city. However, there are also areas with nice large houses located outside of the main city centre. This story takes place 2 years ago. My best friend and his girlfriend were travelling to Palmdale for a 3-week working interview. I had just gotten a new truck and offered to help them move some belongings and explore the city, having heard rumours about its creepy reputation. I wasn't expecting anything specific, but I was certainly open to the possibility. We packed the truck bed and set off in the evening. As we drove down the desert path, the lack of light became immediately apparent. I had to switch on the high beams to negative. The only other sights were that of the dark blue sky and the black silhouettes of cacti in the headlights' glare, and the occasional speck of dirt kicked up by the tires. It was a lonely stretch of road. Suddenly, in the distance, a figure appeared on the side of the road. It seemed impossible, considering the miles of emptiness surrounding us. As we got closer, the figure became clearer. It was hunched over like an elderly person, shrouded in what appeared to be a shawl. As we passed directly beside it, all 3 of us stared intently, wondering if the person needed help. But that's when we realized the horrifying truth. The figure, it wasn't walking, it was floating 2 or 3 feet above the ground. According to my friend, the figure's face was an unnatural white, not pale, but white, with either very dark or completely black eyes. We continued on, shaken by what we had seen, what we had witnessed. Needless to say, we didn't even consider turning back. The image of the floating figure remains etched in my memory, and to tell this story is something I take every chance to do, because it felt like a scene from some terrible 90s horror film. But either way, it is an enticing tale, at least I think so. The strangest part, however, is that this was the least unsettling experience my friend had had in Palmdale. He encountered even crazier things during his stay, but those are stories for another time. Has anyone had any experience with the Hat Man? That is considered an outlier experience? The Hat Man, or the Shadow Man, as my sister and I have always called him, has been tormenting our family for years. From all the research I've done, It seems to be commonly believed that the Hat Man is a sleep paralysis demon slash experience, something exclusive to only sleep. However, I was wondering if anyone has had an experience with the Hat Man whilst being fully awake and not under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Here's my story. In about 2012, I was about 13, and my sister was about 9. My mum had left us home alone to run to the store for a few minutes. This was nothing new to us, as we have been home alone with older siblings multiple times, and we had even been left alone on our own before a few times before that. My mum had just left, maybe 10 minutes prior, and my sister and I were sitting in the family room, which sat right at the end of the hallway where all of the bedrooms were. My sister requested we go to her room and play dolls, and I reluctantly agreed, as I didn't seem to find that too fun at age 13. But I agreed, and we both looked down the hallway towards the rooms that we were heading to. And we both saw a tall black figure with a top hat and a cape coming out from my room. It glided down the hallway right at us, as if it was floating, and then it disappeared into my sister's room. My sister and I were so scared, we ran to the other end of the house and called our mother. But in the 10 minutes it took her to get home, we were continuously hearing what sounded like soft thuds and whispers coming from my sister's room. Now, over 10 years later, my brother lives in that house, and his wife complains about hearing kids running and laughing at night, only to get up and check and have all the kids asleep. My brother himself has gotten home from work and seen the same black-cloaked figure standing over his wife and baby in their room, watching them sleep. I have personally seen him about 2 or 3 additional times over the last few years, but it's always in a flash, just enough to make you gaslight yourself into thinking it may have been the light. Most recently, my younger sister and I, the one who was with me when we saw the original apparition, were babysitting for my brother, and we decided to keep the baby in the living room with us, as she was still eating every 3 hours, and we didn't want to wake up the other children by going back and forth through the house to get her. Over the course of the night, we heard what sounded like children calling our names, only to find that every child in the house was sound asleep. At one point, we went to check on the children, and my nephew had woken up. He had told us that he kept hearing his brother call for us, which made it feel even creepier because he was the only one awake at this point, and we hadn't told the kids anything. Has anyone else had experiences like this? If not, I'd also definitely love feedback as to what you guys think may be going on here. I personally think that the shadow entity is attracted, or should I say attached, to the house, and my sister and I weren't meant to see it, and once we did, it became a taunting game for the entity. TLDR, the Hat Man has been taunting my family for over 10 years. An incident which still creeps me out. A few years ago, I was sleeping, and suddenly in my dream I could see myself sleeping in my own bed, which was kind of trippy. And then, in that dream, the dream version of me noticed the bathroom door was a bit ajar, and suddenly from the bathroom a man who had no eyelids and a bleached white face and disgusting looking teeth just rushed towards the dream me from the dark bathroom at lightning speed, and just choke slammed the dream version of me onto the bed. that was when I woke up from that nightmare. I found that bathroom door was a bit ajar like it was in my dream, and the conditions in my room were totally the same, just like it was in the dream. I closed the bathroom door as fast as possible, turned on the lights in my room, and then went to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I saw a couple of red marks on my neck, which looked like they were fingerprints. Now, I know those were never present there before, and by noon those marks had vanished, never to return again. Till now, whenever I think of it, I get chills down my spine. I have no idea what it was, if it was a ghost or just my mind playing tricks on me. Either way, it was bloody scary. A strange anniversary. Last Sunday night, the 20th of May, I went to bed around 1 AM and was soon fast asleep. Sometime later I woke up in pitch black darkness after I heard a voice saying, "Hey." As I had woke, I turned around, looking over my shoulder, replying, "Yeah," expecting to see my brother there, but there was no one in the doorway. At this point, I was too scared to even reach for my phone to see the time, which was on the nightstand just 2 feet from my head. I was paralyzed in fright and just went back to sleep. I thought nothing of it until Tuesday. So I told my brother, and he remarked that my father had died on the 20th of May. What do you think? Is this a coincidence or what? Well, I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this. Thanks for reading. Shadow of a crow in the window. I honestly don't know where to start, and I'm only writing this because I want to know what this could have been. It goes through my head all the time. By the way, English is not my mother tongue, so I apologize in advance for any spelling mistakes. A little bit of information: I come from Germany. 5 days ago I woke up at around 2 AM at night, and I saw the shadow of a raven on the ceiling from the window. My window doesn't have roller shutters because it's an old house and it wasn't a bedroom before. We haven't renovated there since. The raven had a very long, thin beak bent down, and it didn't move. I didn't hear anything from it either, even though my window was wide open. I could only see his shadow and his long curved beak. That went through my head all the time, so I started Googling it. Here in Germany, ravens sleep at night as far as I know, and this kind of raven doesn't exist here in Germany either. I then researched the internet and found out that there is the legend of a night crab, so-called Sandman, who comes in from a raven and takes children with him who are still awake at night. When I saw the picture of this night crab, I had such goosebumps appear because I had seen this exact raven. I'm not a child anymore, but it was still very creepy to find. This happened about 5 days ago, and I thought I'd share the story with Reddit. It's going through my mind all the time, and I don't really have anyone to talk to about it. Either way, I look forward to hearing your opinions and possible answers. Ex-wife and I saw the same non-existent creepy thing without suggestions from each other. I'm not sure if this is the right place for me to post this, as I am not certain that it is even paranormal or a ghost, but the mutual dream tag stood out to me. I just saw the same thing last night, so it reminded me about it. So a couple of years ago, my ex-wife and I were in bed and I woke up, It was semi-dark. I freaked out for a second because I saw what appeared to be a softball-sized spider. It looked like a giant daddy long leg, but with hundreds of legs that were flying all over the place as it ran all over my wife. It scared the hell out of me, but when I sat up, it was gone. So I thought it was just light or something, maybe my eyes playing up on me. I didn't bring it up with her because, well, I just didn't think it was anything to spend time thinking about. However, a few days later, I woke up to her screaming. I freaked out, not knowing what was going on, and she apologized and says that her eyes were playing tricks on her. She says she saw a big bug the size of a hand, like a spider, with a tiny body and dozens of legs. She said it was running all over me incredibly quickly. I still hadn't told her about my experience. I thought it was weird, but just kind of ignored it. And I had almost forgotten about it until I woke up in the middle of the night last night and then saw the same thing on my dog. Again, I sit up and it's gone. Like I said, I'm not saying this is paranormal, but I want to know what the hell it could have been that both of us had seen. It's odd, right, that we're seeing the same thing? That it's doing the same thing? Without us ever even talking about it with each other before. The mimic in my house. Hey, this is a repost from the Paranormal Encounters subreddit, and really I don't know how this works. I just wanted to share it after seeing so many stories on TikTok like it. So this is just one of my encounters through my short life so far. I have had many encounters before this and after. A little background info. 2 years ago, me and my family moved across states and moved into my current home. We usually have a lot of people in our house, and my family is usually outside on the porch. Some family was supposed to be flying back to the state we moved from that day. I was getting home from school last year and was walking through the door. My mum was walking past into her room and I called out to her. She didn't answer me, so I just brushed it off because she was pretty selective in hearing. My dad was outside smoking, so I went outside and gave him a kiss and a hug to let him know that I had gotten home. I sat down and told him I saw my mother walking into her room and joked that she had just ignored me. My father gave me a confused look and told me that she was at the airport dropping people off. I thought he was joking with me and laughed, saying she probably forgot something and was just getting it. I pulled my phone out to look at her location to, prove that she was here, and it said she was 45 minutes away at the airport. My dad looked at me weird and said that he told me so. But the thing was, I am sure I saw my mother. You see, my mother is rather short. My sisters and I are at least a couple inches taller than her. She also dyes her hair like an orange color. One of my sisters has black hair and the other one has dirty blonde hair. None of us really look like her at all. Now, what's really the kicker to the story is that a week ago we were talking about ghost experiences in a group of me, my dad and my mum. I retold my story and my dad got this look on his face. He does that face when he doesn't want to say something scary. I pressed him on it and it turns out something similar happened to him. My dad is from Morocco and his mum visits from time to time in the States. One time when she was supposed to be in Morocco, he saw her walking up the steps to go upstairs. He was home alone. My sisters and I were at school or work and my mother was at my auntie's house. He chills out on the couch a lot, and from sitting where he is, he can see the top of the porch at the end of the staircase, the one that leads into our house. Being the man he is, he walked up the steps after he saw that she had disappeared upstairs. He gets upstairs to see her walk into the room that she would use when she lives with us. My dad walked into the room, and then obviously no one was there. So, apparently we have an entity that likes mimicking mothers. Oh, and I saw my mother completely solid. It's like it was another mother, not a apparition or a spirit. It was a perfect replica, even down to wearing what she wore the morning I saw her before she left. There's something watching me. I'm unsure what to tag this as, because I'm not entirely sure what kind of entity it is. Only thing, it is not human in nature. But if anyone has any ideas, or any information, or similar stories, I would love to hear it. Basically, there's something living in the woods that's behind my house. It seems to only be active at night. I live alone, and I have had this house for a little over 3 years. It's in a very safe neighborhood during the day. I don't feel anything strange, but once nightfall hits, I cannot be outside under any circumstances. There's something there. I feel it watching me the second the sun sets. I'm not sure how, but I get the feeling whatever it is doesn't like me being here, and it does not like to be seen. Somehow I know if I ever try to look for it or look at it directly, that will be my end. For the most part, it's not a big deal. When I'm inside, it's safe as long as I make a show of locking my door and I don't look out the windows. Sometimes it feels like it's watching me through the windows. And when I feel that feeling, I will always look away and pretend not to notice it. I will then slowly make my way over to the window and close the blinds. If there ever arises a situation where I need to leave home after dark, then I'll quickly walk to my car, careful not to look behind me. I don't run because I've heard that with these types of things, running makes them think you're prey and will make it move faster, like try to chase you down. Even being in the car doesn't feel safe until I've left my driveway. I'm also pretty sure it can control animals. There's been a few times where I've come home late to find a deer in the yard staring at me with no reflection behind its eyes like most animals have. I'll wait until they run away before I pull into the yard. Sometimes this can take several minutes. Once I've even had the neighbor's dog come to my house and just sit at my porch for nearly half an hour straight. It had set off the motion sensor alarm on my doorbell, and when I pulled up the camera app on my phone, the dog would stop and stare directly into the camera. A couple of times I exited the app only for the motion to go off again, only for the dog to stop and stare again as soon as I reopened the app. It did not look out the window. I knew. It knew that I was watching through the camera, but was too scared to see what it would be if I dare looked at it directly. I'm very careful never to look at it, but I've caught the tiniest image of it in the corner of my eye, maybe a glimpse through the window when it gets bold enough to get that close. It has a white face and long, spiny black body. As I've said, whenever this happens, I always look away, pretending not to notice, and close the blinds. Usually it doesn't approach the house though, it just stays in the woods, staring for the most part. And when there's several people over, it stands further back, but it's always there, always watching. Usually I have a don't mess with it and it won't mess with you type of mentality. But lately I've been sending it apple cores and whatnot by throwing them out into the woods. Only during the day, of course. I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad one, but at least I haven't seemed to upset it. I don't know, maybe I should be more cautious, but so far the rules seem clear. Let it watch and don't look back. Kia ora te whanau. Grimm here. Thank you very much for making it to the end of this video. If you liked it, remember, like, subscribe, leave a comment, all the usual jazz. And as always, thank you very much. I don't know if you can hear that, but sounds like we got planes flying above my head. What was I going to say? Oh yes, be safe wherever you are. Have an amazing night or day, and I'm Grimm. And I'm, well, signing off.